Good evening. Appreciate the opportunity the elders have given me to come and talk to you tonight. You wouldn't be able to tell by being up here right now that I do this a lot for a living. I actually studied it in college, and I do a lot of presentations for all the fancy acronyms, CEOs, presidents, VPs, and our world's friendliest retailer customer pretty regularly, but this is brand new for me. I don't ever carry notes around. I might have a sticky note with some bullet points that I hope to touch on some key points, but I've got 3 pages of notes today, and Sam has reassured me there's a dump button beneath the stage. If I crash and burn, I'll just fall through, and may just be like an Arkansas basketball player, one and done from here, but we'll see how it goes. So, where's that fancy clicker? There it is. All right, so the title of this lesson actually comes from a book from a preacher that preached down the road in Waco when I was in college. He put out a book called Understanding God's Will. It's not a book endorsement, but the title of the book really resonated with me, and I think even presently to this day is all of us are constantly trying to understand where we fit in God's church. At least I am, so I don't want to speak for everyone. All of us are given unique gifts, and what do we decide to do with them, and how do we honor and glorify God each and every single day? So the target audience for this lesson is really for any young Christians specifically, or aspiring Christians, and what to prepare for a life of service as you continue on your walk in Christianhood. Some misconceptions that I had about becoming a Christian. I shared the last time I was up here, it took me about 8 years to finally obey the truth, and I would always kind of use the excuse that I didn't have all the answers to the questions that were being asked of me, and I don't know that I ever will, because if you ever stop growing as a Christian, then you might have gone stagnant and need to reassess yourself. But there's some things that I assumed once I was baptized, I would just be protected with this blanket of security from anything in the outside world harming me, and that couldn't be further from the truth. But some things that I want us to really talk about today are what becoming a Christian does, and it doesn't guarantee us immunity. It doesn't protect us from any trials and tribulations. I know various members here, and myself included, have dealt with some of these hardships throughout life, and it's how we handle those and not letting them define who we are as people, but learning how to grow and move on from them, and how do we use that to glorify God and encourage one another. First verse I have up on the screen is from Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 through 26 from Paul's letter. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such there is no law. And those who are in Christ have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. If we live in the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit. Let us not become conceited, provoking one another, envying one another. In hearing these words from the Apostle Paul, it helps me to self-reflect on some of these traits. How am I growing each and every day in love and care for others? In a world where it feels like it's increasingly less popular to be a Christian, at least publicly, it's one of those things that, even in the workplace, it's not something that we're able to express ourselves publicly on. I know a lot of us probably would prefer to live these siloed lives where we're not being influenced by outside factors within the world, but the harsh reality of it, especially when you're a leader of people, is you're interacting with all different walks of life and all different backgrounds. So how are we using those differences to control our own lives, and then make sure that whatever we're doing, that we're also walking in the Spirit and honoring God and finding joy amidst difficult circumstances? Ask yourself if peace is ruling in your heart every day instead of anger, and is your faith evident in your daily actions each and every single day? The next verse I have up on the screen, which is really hard for me to read up there, is Job chapter 38 and verse 3. We're all very familiar with the story of Job and how his faith in God was tested by Satan, and he lost everything. But specifically the verse, chapter 38, verse 3, God tells Job to prepare yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me. This to me was just a reminder that God is constantly challenging us, but he's always working through us, and he'll never give us more than we can handle, but we always have to be ready to answer him at all times. It's an important caveat to remember that everything is in God's time and that tomorrow isn't guaranteed. I know whenever I Again, going back to being baptized, I said, I know enough to know the truth, and I'm going to do it when I'm ready. And every day that I waited beyond that was a gamble, and we never know when it's going to be too late. So have faith and confidence that you can make the right decision today, and it's going to be a work in progress. You're only going to grow into your faith the more you put into it each and every single day. Another verse that I didn't have on the slide, but I wanted to read, especially just due to the commonality of how difficult it can be to be a Christian, is John 15, verse 18. If the world hates you, you know that it hated me before it hated you. Again, it's, like I said, for being a Christian today, it seems like a lot of us have to hold back some of our true feelings just to make sure that we don't get criticized as being something that we're not, just due to the nature of the world, unfortunately. Last verse I have up here is from 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 6 through 9. In this you greatly rejoice, though now for a little while, if need be, you have given grief by various trials, that the genuineness of your faith, being much more precious than gold that perishes, though it is tested by fire, may be found to praise, honor, and glory at all the revelation of Jesus Christ, whom having not seen, you love. Though now you do not see him, yet believing you rejoice with joy inexpressibly and full of glory, receiving the end of your faith, the salvation of your souls. Here Peter reminds us that our trials and our grief are anchored in hope. Genuine faith produces joy that triumphs over evil and suffering. Our trials, no matter how big or how vast, are temporary and purposeful. And it's important to remember that God is always working through us and never gives us more than we can handle. Next point I wanted to make is being a Christian, it requires constant preparation. So just like anything you do in life, whether it's a sport you play, a skill you practice, just your typical job functions, if you're not working on refining those skills, you're not growing. So you find the time to open your Bible. We all live with our phones attached to our hands or in our pockets. Listen to it while you're driving. Find time to study the Word. I find that I'm guilty of dozing off at night when I'm saying my prayers. I hope somebody else does too. So I try to be cognizant of that, and I make it up. And on my drive to work sometimes, or sitting in traffic, there's nothing else better to do than try and get closer to God and talk to Him whenever you have things that are heavy on your shoulders. And none of us are expected to fight those battles alone. Matthew chapter 24, verses 42, verses 44. Watch, therefore, you do not know what hour your Lord is coming, but know this, that if the master of the house had known what the hour the thief would come, he would have watched and not allowed his house to be broken into. Therefore, you also be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at any hour that you do not expect. So again, make time to pray. We're on God's time. Nothing is guaranteed beyond tomorrow. All right, I'm not going to repeat Kenton's verse that he read for us, but thank you for reading that verse for us earlier, Kenton. Our next verse I had on the board was from Hebrews chapter 10, verse 24 through 25. Actually, is this the one you read? No, it's not the one you read. Sorry. All right, let us consider one another in order to stir up in love and good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves as is the manner of some, but exhorting one another, and so much more as you see the day approaching. This is one to me that really resonated because, sorry to put my wife on notice, but she's made the point before that, if it's hard for you to get to church on Sunday night, Sunday morning, Wednesday night, then what do you expect heaven's going to look like? Like if it's hard for us to dedicate 1 hour in heaven where time doesn't exist, it's going to be a life of service to God. So that's something that I think all of us should probably put into perspective as we consider our attendance in the assembly. The biggest point that I hope to make home today is, it seems like the word of the day, and that's grace. We are meek and sinful creatures, but we are saved by God's grace, and we're worthy of His grace. God provides forgiveness and sent His only Son to die for us, knowing these imperfections that we have. The first verse I wanted to talk about is Ephesians chapter 4, verses 2 through 9. With all lowliness and gentleness, with all long-suffering, bearing in love one another's burdens, endeavoring to keep the unity of the Spirit In the bond of peace, there is one body and one spirit, just as you were called in one hope of your calling, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is above all and through all in you. The next verse was 2 Corinthians chapter 12 and verse 9, the thorn of the flesh. This is one that Warren covered a lot more diligently this morning. My grace is sufficient for you. My strength is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, most gladly, I would rather boast in my infirmities than that the power of Christ may rest upon me. Paul's plea for the thorn in his flesh to be removed, we see his response shifting from pleading for that thorn to be removed to embracing weakness so that Christ's strength can be seen clearly through him. God's grace is enough for every need that we have, not just to endure, but to also thrive in life. Last verse I have on the board is Hebrews chapter 4 and verse 16. Let us therefore come boldly to the throne of grace that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in time of need. Again, we all fight battles, and I'd like to encourage us to all to be more open with those struggles, and I don't mean to suggest to come forward and talk about those publicly, but to write them down, give them to God, talk to someone that you're close to. There's nothing too big that you can't overcome. Something that's kind of been heavy on the mind in recent days is this week there was someone, I guess, an 80-year-old man had walked into the middle of the golf course. It's about a quarter mile from our house and taken his own life. I have no idea anything about him or what he was going through, but I thought back to when I was in elementary school. I had a friend who took his own life at 14 years old, and it's something that I think back pretty regularly on due to some similarities that we had growing up, but also as my kids get closer to that age. And I just want to encourage folks that there's something much bigger than anything that you could possibly be going through at this point. And I'm not trying to suggest anyone here is dealing with something to that magnitude, but all of this is temporary. The status you accrue in life, the jobs, the money, the title, even our own families, everything that we enjoy from a physical luxury standpoint is all temporary. It's not going with us, and that includes the problems and hardships of this world. So reach out to anybody, reach out to myself, talk through it. You can overcome it, and we'll get through it together. So what's the take-home message here? I don't mean for it to be all somber and gloomy, but the take-home message that I hope that you'll hear today is being a Christian, it can be hard. I understand that word is subjective, but for me, I know that it's something that you could be trying your best to do the right thing every single day, and it feels like everything on the outside world is trying to knock you off that path or help you lose focus, lose sight of the things that truly matter in life. So there's no days off. With hard work comes great sacrifice, just like the jobs you work in, the relationships that you have with your significant others or your families. But there's an even greater reward, one that's eternal, one that we should all be looking forward to each and every day. And our lives are a gift that come with those trials and tribulations. It's nothing we can't overcome. But they're ones that we're not expected to handle on our own today. My son had asked me on the way here, he's like, "Dad, why are you doing this? You're not a preacher today." And he's right. But I said, sometimes you have to do things that are outside of your comfort zone and just hope that it encourages one person. So that was the goal here for today. You guys are all an encouragement to me, especially our young men when they come up here and lead services once a month. You guys are the future of the church, and stay the course and put your faith and trust in God, and you'll be doing great things for many, many years to come. So when those burdens become overbearing, remember that you are loved. And that's something I don't think that we publicly say enough. I don't think it's possible to say that enough. You're loved. You're loved by God. You're loved by your church. You're loved by your families. Don't ever forget that. So remember that you are loved. This is a line from my favorite Avett Brothers song. It's family friendly, so it's called "We Are Loved." So everything that we talked about, the hardships, the trials, the things that we go through, these are all burdens, and we're called to bear one another's burdens. But the most important thing to remember as we're going through those things is that we are loved by something greater than us, something that we can't see, but someone who knew us before we were in the womb. Something we can't even wrap our heads around sometimes, but trust that God has a bigger plan for us than anything that we're possibly going through at any given time. So for all those who are willing to answer the call today, maybe that's you, maybe that time is today, or maybe you just need some prayers of encouragement to overcome these battles, I assure you, you don't have to fight those alone. If anyone feels subject to the invitation, please come forward while we stand and sing.